Mere mortals, who's going to carry the boats? Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews. I am back once again to do another book review. This time around, I've got Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds, by the man himself, David Goggins. Now, I wanted to probably begin with David himself. Now, if you know who David Goggins is, it's probably a little explanation that I really have to give for you. If you don't, I'm going to play something right now to give you a bit of an idea of who David Goggins is.
It's 44 degrees and it's nice and rainy outside. But no one cares about that. It's not about the rain. It's what the rain represents. Life was always giving you a test. Trying to give you a way out. Trying to give you an excuse not to show up. This is my excuse today. But guess what? You gotta have the mentality to show up every fucking day of your life. No matter what life throws at you. It's our responsibility to show up to the Coliseum of life. Prepared for fucking battle. I don't care what you're going through, what life's throwing at you. It's your responsibility to find your new 100%. Take it upon yourself to do that. Stay hard.
Now, as you might have seen, David is either someone who you think is a great motivational speaker and speaks the absolute truth, or you think perhaps it's a little bit extreme, it's a little bit out there. I'll probably give you my own thoughts as well, because it kind of wraps up with the book at the tail end, so stick around for that. But let's kick into what the book is all around and the synopsis of it. So it is a thicker book by the initial look of it, if you're looking here, and it's actually a total of around 350 pages, so it did take me a few weeks to actually read it through, but the words itself are large in essence, so it is a good read. And look, at the very onset of it, this book reads more like a fantasy than it does a motivational book per se. So kind of like the Ryan Holiday books that I've been reading so far, where it's just sharp chapters that give you a little bit of insight. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is the opposite. It's really a storytelling, the life of David through a lot of the things that he went through, some of the challenges in his early life, through his career, through being in the military, through going into ultra marathons, and the successes that he also was able to get to by overcoming and going through those obstacles in his very David Goggins way. The book, I'll just pull through here in the actual chapters, just really goes from start of his life through to where he is today. So a little bit of the content is he should have been a statistic, and talks about, why he really should have just been one of those people that at a young age went through and ended up in where we would see a troubled young youth, so where it might be dead or jail or something else, and really then goes through the impossible task, taking souls, so that the mentality that David sort of established to moving away from where he was in a very traveled youth, and I'll talk a little about that in a minute, but into, trying to become a Navy SEAL, going into being a Naval SEAL after going through 3 Hell Weeks, then moving through to attempting Ranger selection and passing through that, doing Delta selection, the back and forth in Ultras and a lot of his stories. And the book really just, it doesn't go into every single little detail of what made David Goggins. So there's other things in between. There's probably gaps in there of a few years where he doesn't go into too much detail. And in fact, he doesn't really talk about much of his time in the army either, whether that's in combat roles or whether that's in his training roles. It's much more focused on the challenges, the ins and outs around his training, and really the mentality shift that got David to going from it really being overweight. And the actual front cover, you can actually see him and sort of his past as 300 or so pounds to what he looked like, or at least is with his white overalls for being a Navy SEAL. So beyond the book being really a storytelling or a retelling of his life, but not really in a biographical sense, it really then just dissects a lot of the mentality improvements, or the callousing of the mind, as David Goggins talks about. Now, one other aspect as well of this book that you'll probably see is that, unlike others, when there's a paragraph, there's no spaces in this. And so you'll actually go a couple of pages. I'm just going to pick it at random here, a few pages. and you'll go, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 before there's even any space, any gap. And that's why I was sort of going back to my original point. It's sort of like a fantasy book. You're reading through something that just seems so otherworldly. So whether it might be David, choosing to lose, I think it was like 106 pounds in X amount of months just to be able to attempt to become a Navy SEAL, and the things that he was doing around it with basically like nonstop bike riding, running, swimming, etc., to getting himself ready for some of the longer ultra marathons in the heat. So I think it was the Badwater race of 135, and basically running around in multiple layers just so he can callous his mind and his body. So again, he talks a lot about some of that physical preparation and the callousing of the mind, and is wrapped up in all this fantasy style storytelling. And you can really tell that it is written by David Goggins, because there is a lot of swearing, there's a lot of directness, there is no two ways about it, or he doesn't leave you thinking with what he really thinks about it. And so I think it's going to have a very polarizing view. If you do choose to read this, you'll either really quite agree with David Goggins, so there'll be that aspect, and everything that comes out of here, you'll be like, hell yes. You could be completely the other extreme, where you go, no, this is not for me. I don't see how this sort of extremeness can actually be beneficial. And I know that another guy, Fergus Crawley, who does quite long distance triathlons and Ironmans, he doesn't particularly see as beneficial at all. Or like me, you might land in the middle, in the sense of that you can see the benefits, such as the taking souls mentality, which I'll get into in my takeaways, which I think is actually quite good. But I wouldn't go and replicate or attempt to replicate what David Goggins has actually done. So let me cut into the themes of the book. So I've talked quite a bit around really the synopsis of it. Now, for me, the main points around this book is callousing the mind. So callousing the mind is a theme that goes throughout the whole book, and that is both, I should say, callousing the mind and the body. There's a big piece to David Goggins, whether you've seen a lot of his videos and you can consume and his book here as well. It's doing the hard things. He's very much a proponent of get after the obstacle. If it's the hard thing, excellent, good. You should be doing that. Even if it isn't training for an ultra marathon, it's just basically as a way of life, of getting up, doing the runs, doing the bike rides. It was an example of when he was working as a Navy SEAL, and in preparation for his first ultra marathon, he would basically wake up, go for a run, get himself ready, do a bit of a workout, then run to work, which was miles upon miles, right? Like way more miles than you'd even think. So you think maybe like 5-6 miles an hour. There was like 20-30 miles in a day. He'd run into work, do his work. I think he'd still be doing PT in the morning, the training with like the Navy SEALs. Then at lunchtime, he'd go for another run, do the rest of his workday, run home, and then perhaps at night he might do, something else. And yes, like that's huge. And he would just do it day in, day out. And in similar ways to someone like a Jocko Willink and the others, you can really tell that there's no mentality here of taking a day off. No, this is you're absolutely all in. So, and David does that through callousing on the mind. So that theme of callousing, whether it's through, overcoming any challenges that are thrown your way, is obviously big through that. The other theme that I didn't really know what to think about it really is the challenges that sit at the end of every chapter. So I'm going to give you a little example. This is at the end of chapter 2. So it goes, it's time to come eyeball to eyeball with yourself and get raw and real. This is not a self-love tactic. David Goggins. You can't fluff it. Don't massage your ego. This is about abolishing the ego and taking the first step towards becoming the real you. I take post-it notes on my accountability mirror, and I'll ask you to do the same. Digital devices won't work. Write all your insecurities, dreams, and goals and post-its and tag up your mirror. If you need more education, remind yourself that you need to start working your ass off because you aren't smart enough. And obviously it goes a little bit longer, but that gives you a little taste of, one, really David Goggins kind of going and being like, nah, I don't care, do this. But also these challenges is themed throughout because they all sort of tie up with something that was discussed during that part of the chapter of the book. And look, I didn't personally take into account any of them. I didn't attempt any of them. I've seen this in the past in something like Gary Vee's book, where at the very end, he sort of suggests if you feel it, post an image of yourself staring into your tagged up accountability mirror on social media with the hashtag can't hurt me accountability mirror. And it seemed it seemed a little bit at odds in the fact that David Goggins doesn't usually do that all that often. You'll see a lot of big motivational posts that he will do, but I know he's personally discussed it that he enjoys doing that, not so much to do it, like he's not doing it for the motivational purpose. He just might be out on a run and he'll want a partner or a friend to come at around X amount of time because he knows by then he'll be fluid, he'll be probably mentally thinking through things and just be able to suggest something. So these challenges, it seemed strange to me. It almost seemed like it wasn't a David Goggins thing to do. He tends to me to be more of a working not in the shadows, but doing it for himself, not so much to post it for others. But anyways, that was a theme that sort of prevailed because obviously it was across all of the chapters. Now, I wanted to get back to this particular one, the key takeaways now from this book, because obviously you really have to go and check out the book and read it. And I'm going to get ahead of here. I recommend that you actually read this, either because you hate it or because you love it or because you're somewhere in the middle, because I think these particular takeaways anybody can take away. And so the first one that I've been actually implementing really quite a bit now is taking souls mentality. Now, the taking souls mentality, the great piece that is in this book, although there's plenty of examples, but there was one where I believe it was Boat Team 2, where during Hell Week, they have to carry boats, in essence, and these black boats, basically on the heads, carrying them overhead. Tired, it's 5 days of no sleeping or whatever it may be. Right, it sounds horrendous. You're working out of time. I kind of feel like it's kind of fun, but sure enough, there's not many people that actually make it through this particular challenge to become a Navy SEAL. And in the story, David Goggins goes on to kind of show that his mentality there was they're going to show these instructors just how much they're willing to continue going, just how good they are, and that these instructors are not going to be able to take their soul. And so he reverted back. He put the reverse card out and he said, look, I'm going to take your souls. And so there was a particular point when during the instructors saying, okay, cool, you can put your boat down, which basically is you've been working out and being pushed for 3 days, you're super cold, it's nighttime, whatever it may be, you can rest for 10 seconds. And David Goggins decided to get his team of whatever amount of people, group of 6, 7, 8 people, to go, nah, pick up the boat, keep throwing it up over your heads, put it back on the ground, keep throwing it up over your heads in a pretty strong leadership move, and scream out, you can't beat it, you can't break Boat Team 2, you can't break Boat Team 2. And he explains in the actual book how he would look into the instructor's eyes and go, damn, we can't break him. There's nothing that we can do that's actually going to challenge him here. And he ended up doing 3 Hell Weeks. Yeah, 3 Hell Weeks. And again, if you don't know what a Hell Week is, just go check that out because that's insane. And he talks about how there was some points where the instructors would basically just go, nah, we're gonna leave David alone. Like there's nothing we can do to challenging him more. Almost that the extra challenging and the suffering that we're putting on him, he's enjoying too much. So the greatest suffering that we can do is for him to be on his lonesome and actually do nothing, which just seemed like wild to me. And look, of course, if this is an individual who he failed twice through the Delta selection. And I believe twice it wasn't because of his physical fitness. It was purely from getting ahead of himself almost, which is a rare thing for him. He thought he'd already kind of like finished it, was on the wrong mountain, tried to make up for it, didn't get it. But again, going back to that taking souls, and I was just saying, I've been applying that in my life in a very pulled back way. Again, I agree with it, but I'm not saying that I'm taking it to its full extreme. So for me, that might be running on the treadmill, and I've been doing this for the last few weeks. I'm planning to do 2 kilometers. I might see just someone walking around, someone next to me on the treadmill, and my mentality might switch a little bit and go, cool, let's try to take some souls here. And in fact, I'm not going to get off this treadmill. I was saying this to Karen the other day where I went, I'm not going to get off this treadmill until this person next to me gets off their treadmill. And I ended up doing an extra kilometer of running, which to me, look, in the end of the day, it's making me be perhaps more stronger, faster, better at what I'm doing. But again, take it in moderation. So don't go to the full extreme that David Goggins will be doing. So I know that in this book as well, he talks about how he pursued an ultra marathon, was basically down with staph infection, like pissing blood. This dude was about to cark it. He was laying in a tub. And, his partner was like, we got to call, a doctor. We need to take you in for an ambulance. And he was like, no, let me lay here in this tub just for a little bit so I can feel the suffering that has emanated from this run because this is my trophy, if you like. So look, David Goggins, he's an extreme man. I'll give him that, but I'm not all the way there. The other takeaway as well was, and it's not as highlighted as much in the book as I thought it would be, but it's a 40% rule. And that's the rule of when you're pushing to your absolute extreme, when you think you've absolutely given all of you can. David kind of follows it up with, you're probably at about 40% of your actual physical limit. And again, there's plenty of stories, especially more so towards the end of the book in the ultramarathon runs, where he kind of demonstrates that, again and again, when he thinks that he's absolutely reached his max in a 100-mile line and he's 60 miles in, he somehow is able to keep on pulling through and do 80, 90, 100 miles and then get it all done. So that mentality to me is actually a good one as well. I guess it helps us or anybody to kind of go, yes, we're mere mortals, but sometimes you might be absolutely pushing to your limit. It's okay. You can go more. You can go way further beyond. The human body can push you there. Now, do you want to do that all the time as David Goggins does? Probably not. That's probably not my recommendation, but it was a key takeaway for me to go, you know what? Sometimes we can push beyond just being mere mortals. Sometimes, not all the times. Now, that for me, that's can't hurt me. Would I recommend it again? Absolutely. I really, really do recommend you actually go and read this. A little summary here at the back will give you an idea of it. Poverty, prejudice, and physical abuse colored his days and haunted his nights. Through self-discipline, mental toughness, and hard work, Goggins transformed himself from a depressed, overweight young man with no future into a U.S. Armed Forces icon and one of the world's top endurance athletes, the only man in history to complete elite training as a Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, Air Force Tactical Air Controller. He then went on to set numerous records, endurance events, pull-ups, you name it. That's a sort of description or bio to me that goes, I need to learn something from this guy. I might not agree with him. I might completely disagree with him, but there's something there to be learned and taken away for your own life. So for that, I'd say absolutely go give it a read. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. Bit of rating for me. Really enjoyed it. Would I read it back again? Maybe. There might actually be some points here that I might reread, but not the whole book. Once you read it once, and again, it's kind of like a fantasy book. It's awesome. You kind of see this fairy tale of the extreme people out there, and then you kind of just pull away some of the good stuff and pull it into our own world, mere mortals. But for now, that's it. That's the book review for Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I hope you enjoyed or at least took away some ideas, whether you actually want to go and fully read the book or not, and at least some of the takeaways that I've taken out now and applied on my own life. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope that you are well wherever you are in the world. Mere mortals, Juan out.